Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It's Thursday, March 12th, 2026. It's about 2 p.m. And we are here to hear Bill H740 from the Committee on Energy and Digital Infrastructure. And we appreciate your flexibility and willingness to come back this afternoon. We got a little behind this morning, so it's just seemed a lot easier, and we're happy to give you a little attention now. So, Ellen, if you want to introduce yourself and tell us about the bill to start, that'd be great.
Great. Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. So I'm here on H740. As voted out of House Energy and Digital Infrastructure, it was draft 2.3. It's a very narrow bill. What it does is extend and clarify the Agency of Natural Resources' existing authority to make rules related to the greenhouse gas inventory and registry. So for quite a while now, the Agency of Natural Resources has been producing a greenhouse gas inventory and forecast. They have existing authority in 10 VSA 582 to adopt rules for their greenhouse gas registry. But this is adding specific type of rulemaking authority that the agency has asked that they believe that they need, specifically to adopt a comprehensive greenhouse gas emission reporting program that covers all emissions, including fuel suppliers, which are not currently under their other reporting rules. And so it will be a program that covers suppliers of transportation and heating fuels, and possibly other types of fuels. They shall adopt a rule that at a minimum requires reporting on the types and volumes of fossil fuels sold by sector for transportation, residential, commercial, and industrial, and to do this by zip code, municipality, or however practicable. So they're going to adopt a rule and also create a database for where the reported data will live. So then there is an appropriation in section 3, as well as some positions at the agency. The appropriation in this bill is for $500,000 to draft the greenhouse gas reporting rules, develop the database, as well as support the staff that will need to collect the data and manage the database. And so there will be 2 additional permanent environmental analyst positions at the agency for that as well. And it is specific as a base appropriation.
Okay, great. And I think Representative Chair James will probably get into the details about all of this beyond just what is in the legal thing. So maybe that would be the better time for your question. That'd be great. So I think unless we have a clarifying question, don't leave, but so thank you very much. And Scott from Joint Fiscal, who's also been patiently waiting for us.
Never patient for you all, man. Good afternoon, Scott Moore, Legislative Finance Manager for the Joint Fiscal Office. As Ellen just mentioned, this bill does come with a $500,000 appropriation to the base above what would already be given to ANR. And Ellen did mention 2 permanent positions for this environmental analyst. Doing the math, that number would come out to be estimated $185,000 to cover those 2 positions in FY27. Now going forward, as the permanent positions in FY28, 29, and 30, it's hard to know what that cost might be because there could be pay act raises, et cetera, et cetera. But for FY27, that is estimated cost would be an additional $185,000. So a total of $685,000 would be added to the budget from this bill.
Okay, so we didn't in the bill, it didn't say the dollar figure for the positions.
Right.
Don't we usually put that in the bill? I'll look at you, Ellen.
I was assuming it was part of the 500. We kind of picked another.
Is it?
Sorry, it's included. I went over that.
Introduce yourself.
I'm sorry. Representative Kathleen James, Bennington 4 District. I did talk to Secretary Moore kind of at length about their $500,000 request base, and that includes the 2 positions.
Okay.
So I've got a bunch of notes here on what that.
Okay, why don't you join us at the table?
Okay, sure.
My apologies, Madam Chair. I was the impression this would be 2 additional positions not included in that 500.
Okay,
So the no still stands and that $185,000 would be the potential cost of those two positions.
Okay, and it's part of the 500,000. Is that right? Do you want to, is that anything else we need to know on the money part, Kath? Is there Representative James, Madam Chair?
I have a bunch of notes on the $500,000 request. So I guess I don't know what level of detail you would like, but the $500,000 base.
Well, let's see if
Yep.
there's a question about that.
Well, my question is on the money, $185,000 for two positions, $185,000 is not much.
Half a year. It's half a year.
Half a year?
It's half a year.
Okay, they're gonna be permanent positions.
That is the proposal, I understand. So let's hear what Rep. James says about the
Okay.
money's going to be used, because she has talked with A&R about.
I have talked with A&R. So it does come out to 2 FTE. And so where we or I came up with the 500,000 was just your general 150,000 per FTE placeholder. So salary, benefits, fit up for like laptops or something. So I checked in with JFO a little bit and said, are we accustomed to seeing 150,000 for an FTE? And they said, yeah, we are. So 2 FTE, that's the 300,000 in ongoing base costs. And then there's also $200,000 in platform maintenance and third-party verification, so compliance. So that's how they came to the 500,000. Now I'm going to really get out over my skis now, talking to Appropriations, so I'm a little nervous. But originally there had been 500,000 base and 300,000 one time.
Yeah.
Secretary Moore says they no longer need the 300,000 one time. That if this money gets approved, if the 500 base gets approved starting in July, it's going to take them a while to hire. And using those vacancy savings, they can start doing some of these early startup costs. And so some of the costs that would have come later, they'll have the money for. So long story short, 500K base is all they need. They don't need more one time next year. That will cover this program going forward.
Madam Chair, just to clarify on the 150 versus 185, because this bill does list specifically the environmental analyst 5, we can go and look and see what the actual pay grade would be for that specific position. So therefore, that's that addition
Okay.
is because of the specific pay grade 24, step
Okay.
1, step 2.
Okay.
I don't know
So,
about that.
so Rep. James, do you want to talk a little bit about the purpose of the registry? And, you know, we have the bill, but you tell us the reasons and that why it's needed and all of that kind of stuff.
I do want to talk about that.
Consider state whatever you. Okay.
So, you know, I came before the committee on pitch day or Shark Tank day or whatever to talk about why I think this bill is so important. And I want to reiterate that point to you now with even greater passion, if I possibly can. First of all, we talk a lot in this building and all across the state about affordability. It matters. And I want to tell you that the long-term future of energy on this planet will become more and more and more affordable and sustainable, not to mention healthy, when we are able to make a transition to renewables. They are cheaper. So how do we get there? Where we bog down time and time again, rightly so, is on the cost of that transition. Okay? So it's, can we spend a penny to save a dime? We know we're going to save the dime. Where are we going to get the penny? And we fight in Vermont and we fight in every state and we fight at the federal level about the penny. And I'm not saying a penny doesn't matter. And I'm not saying $500,000 is a penny. But I'm saying if we keep stopping the argument at the penny, we will not get to the sustainable, affordable energy future that the rest of the world right now, by the way, is forging merrily ahead on. And we are getting left behind. Vermont's economy is getting left behind. The American economy is getting left behind. So there's not much that I can do sitting here today to fix what's happening in DC or to fix the global energy economy. But I can tell you that we can create effective policies here that help low and moderate income Vermonters if we have the data we need. So I'm going to go ahead and say clean heat standard. Let's just all take a minute. Let's just all take a minute to breathe. There are policy ideas that are great ideas that hit a brick wall because we don't know how to design them properly. And I think we were all here for the many years that we've tried to move forward a clean heat standard. And that is DOA right now, so don't, anybody.
That's not where we're going.
That's not where we're going. Nobody needs to come and, collar me in the hallway. But, we try to pass a thoughtful policy that's not going to be regressive, that's not going to jack the price of fuel, that's going to help low and moderate income Vermonters weatherize their homes or put in a heat pump. And we get stuck on, well, where are we going to get that money? And then when we have debates over controversial topics like the clean heat standard, we have people hauling out their napkins and hauling out their envelopes and scribbling on the back to say, well, gee, we think this is going to raise the price of fuel at $4 a gallon. We think it's going to raise the price of fuel. Oh, we don't know. It's going to be terrible. And policy ideas die. So the greenhouse gas inventory that we have right now is not sufficient to build detailed, responsive, thoughtful policy that works for Vermonters. It's just not. It's super high level. It is not, and I know folks have claimed this is not data that's readily available for free. If it was, we wouldn't have this bill. So the greenhouse gas inventory and the data that we can get from the tax department and from the DMV is high-level, statewide aggregate data. And you can take a look at it right here, and I'll take a look at it for you. It's the number of gallons of heating oil, kerosene, and propane sold by month.
For the whole state.
For the whole state. So that's not helpful. Okay, we do better than that in this building. At least we try to. So what this bill proposes is to gather sales data, okay? So this is data that fuel suppliers readily have at their fingertips. They are already reporting it to tax, okay? So this gathers sales data from our fuel suppliers across the heating and transportation sectors. Those are the two sectors in our economy that contribute the most to air pollution, to carbon pollution. Heating, transportation. That's where our carbon pollution is coming from. Those two sectors of our economy right now are totally unregulated in terms of sales and pricing. So if you want to ask why we're doing so much better in the electric sector, it's because that's a regulated sector. Okay? Nobody's controlling the price of gas at the pump except for the war in the Middle East right now. Okay, so we need data across these unregulated sectors. And all we're asking is that they upload sales data to a portal. And if that's too heavy a lift, come on. So they're going to upload it to a portal, and it's going to gather this data by type of fuel. That's really helpful. We already have that. By supplier and by zip code. And that is really valuable. So I could keep going. I sense from the chair that I need to stop.
Well, you can keep going, but I would want to get some questions in that will allow you to keep going too.
Sure.
Go ahead, Wayne.
So the tax department has data. So why can't you use the data?
So that is a great question. In the memo that it put out in December, A&R and the Climate Office explained why this policy was so important and why it was one of their top 10 priorities for our climate action moving forward. And they explained that there are two ways that we could get this data. One way is called, A&R just called it standalone reporting. And that's the path we envision in this bill, that A&R will stand up its own portal and people will upload to tax and they'll upload to A&R slightly different data to A&R. So the other way was called reverse harmonization. And that meant getting it from the state agencies that are currently gathering it and see if it's sufficient. A&R decided that wasn't the way to go. But I think the beauty of this bill is that this bill doesn't design the program. It gives A&R the authority they need to design the program through rulemaking. And they've told us that they'll continue to explore reverse harmonization and whether they could just get it for tax. But at this point, they're not convinced that, I think they've had less success maybe in the past with getting data from tax. So it's not off the table.
See, my thinking of this is that if the data exists and can be shared electronically between the other agencies, then it's merely a matter of aggregating it into the system, whatever system you're going to use to analyze data, store and analyze data. And that doesn't, I wouldn't see why you would need two employees once that data was in there. I can't imagine this. We only have how many places selling in the States? 1,000? It's not like this a huge number of entities that would be giving you data. When that data comes in, goes in there, and then we should have standard analyses for each of the years in order to figure out whatever the metrics are that you want to derive from that. Doesn't seem as if it has to be this big and have employees going forward through time that we're going to have to pay COLAs and insurance and everything else on. So I'm just wondering, have they thought this out well? Have they actually upfront told you why one method would be better than the other or not? Which one would be more costly or not?
Yeah, and I can share with the committee, it's buried somewhere, unfortunately, in my foot-high stack of papers that are going to become maybe a floor report. We'll see. But the memo that A&R delivered in December talks at greater length about this difference between reverse harmonization and standalone and why at this point they feel like it's not as good. I know it has to do with the quality of the data, the granularity of the data, and whether it would be possible to work it out with tax. Rulemaking would not rule that out. I will make another point, which is that one of the FTEs is for somebody to run the program. So to run the portal, to run the outreach, to kind of be the person who will run this greenhouse gas reporting program. The other FTE is for compliance. And I think that's interesting because when we stood up and I realize this is all part of kind of a broken process, but when we stood up the fuel dealer registry as part of the now, extinct clean heat standard, compliance was really low. A very, very low percentage of fuel dealers complied with that fuel dealer registry, even though it was supposed to be mandatory. So I think A&R is concerned about compliance.
I mean, if they have to report to the taxes and the tax department is making them comply, if the data that the tax department is collecting isn't quite all the data that you need, perhaps you could have them modify their their data collections
The data that tax is getting.
that they're getting so that you didn't have to create something new. And as far as compliance is concerned, A&R has a whole compliance division already. So why would they need another person to do this when they have compliance officers there now?
Yeah, I guess I would come back to the question or to what I said earlier, which is that A&R has said that they'll continue to work on this path. And if that's the result of the rulemaking, then that's the result of the rulemaking. I don't think A&R would have an interest in making it harder, more complicated, and more expensive if there's an easier way. But for now, that's not what they're recommending.
Rick.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask you the same question about the records, because it seemed to me somebody must have the records already, just for their sales. Yeah. But we did, I don't know, $800,000 we gave to the treasurer's office a couple of years ago to do something to stand up the requirements for this. What happened to that report, and why is that different than this, or did it duplicative, or was it a totally different report?
Not sure what report.
Different report. That was for the oil,
Oh, for the Climate Super Fund?
yes.
Yeah, that's
However-
a different bill.
However, the PUC did do a report.
The PUC did a couple of reports. Are you talking about the clean heat standard? Yeah. So the PUC, and this was, sort of unprecedented, but when we passed the clean heat standard in the second time I guess we didn't, well, we did pass it the first time. When we passed the clean heat standard the second time in 2024, in 23, we built into that bill a sort of unprecedented check back. And I just want to reiterate, this bill is not the clean heat standard. So, but happy to talk about this other thing. So we put a check back report into the clean heat standard, and that basically did two things. It required the Public Utility Commission to do a very comprehensive sort of exploratory draft rulemaking process to look into every aspect of the clean heat standard to try to get a handle on costs, because we didn't have the data that we needed. And also to look at the logistics of it, like how would this really work for Vermont? So we built that check back into the bill. And we also put language into the bill that said that the clean heat standard could not proceed without legislative approval. And what that meant was, and believe me, I remember talking with Ledge Council about this many times. What that meant was the introduction of a brand new bill, testimony in the House, testimony in the House, passage by the full legislature, signing by the governor. So that robust report came back from the PUC on January 15th, 2025. At the very beginning of this biennium, we held a joint hearing with my committee and with Senate Environment the day after the checkback report was issued to hear their findings. And what the PUC reported was that the cost of the proposed clean heat standard would not have been $4 a gallon. It in fact would have been 8 cents a gallon, moving to 58 cents a gallon 10 years out. But also that they didn't think the clean heat standard was a good idea for Vermont to do as a standalone program, that it was too complicated for Vermont. And so with that report in hand that we received at the very start of this biennium, we're now 2 days from crossover. No one has introduced that bill. No one has taken testimony on that bill. The PUC has formally stopped working on the bill, and all of those staff are gone or doing other jobs. So I think that's what you're probably talking
Yeah,
about.
one follow-up, please. The other thing is what I recall when we were across the hall is that one of the things that constantly came up, and you sort of referred to it earlier, is that the regulated electrical source.
Mhm.
It's not a fuel, but it's a source. It needs fuel to generate electricity. Is more cost effective than the unregulated. And one of the things that I remember way back when we had the CVPS Green Mountain Power discussion is that there are dockets at the PUC all the time for electric rates.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure I've ever seen a docket go down on electric rates. Whereas oil or gas or whatever goes up and down depending on all kinds of things that, like the situation right now is going to go up. But previous to that, it's gone down. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. I'm just curious if you've got electricity as your power source, as your alternative that you're looking at with a variety of fuels that produce this product, and it's always going up, how does that become a more economically viable alternative?
I want to make sure I'm understanding your question and how it relates
So the cost of
to this
power,
bill.
the cost of power.
Okay. So I think you're asking me if I look to the future and I think it's beneficial to move away from fossil fuels and toward more renewable fuels. I think what you're saying is, and that's going to drive more electric demand because people are going to be driving EVs and maybe putting in heat pumps. But the price of electricity keeps going up. And so how does it all come out in the wash?
Yeah, how does that save money? I mean, I understand that it's an alternative.
Mhm.
We're all very thankful for electricity. But, I mean, we have closed our nuclear power plant, which was extremely cost effective. And there is now rumblings of trying to use nuclear as an alternative,
Mhm.
which does no emissions. How is the electric cost going to be variable and adjust if we're saving money and it will go down? As opposed to unregulated,
Mhm.
goes up and down by market forces.
Okay. I'll take a swing at that. What I meant was, yes, electric prices, they go up. Someone is taking a look at those rate increase requests, right? And that's what I meant by regulated. So New England has among the highest electric prices in the country, which is not great. Vermont has the lowest electricity prices in New England, precisely because of our regulated structure. So we've got tariff increases coming to the department or the PUC, and they have to be approved. And that is why in a region that generally has higher electric rates, Vermont has the lowest electric rates of these surrounding states. So will the cost of electricity continue to rise as we continue to electrify? It could, or it could not. One of the things that I think is really interesting about the way energy is evolving in the United States is that there's an increasing realization that demand side management is really, really important. So when we look at, Velco, our transmission company, and Green Mountain Power, our distribution utilities, they are working just as hard on reducing electric load. So that's things like batteries, right? So that we can store and release. When you put in a solar panel at your house, GMP now has a great deal on putting in a whole battery wall so that you can generate power, store that power, and release that power back to the grid. So I think there's just as much emphasis these days on energy storage, on things like smart meters, and on reducing our overall energy usage. And I don't have these numbers at my fingertip, but one of the things that I find so interesting is that with the money that we all spend on our electric bill that goes to Efficiency Vermont, those efficiency charges, that money has been turned around and invested in measures that have reduced Vermont's overall energy usage through greater efficiency. So I know that's kind of a circular question, but I guess what I'm saying is, and again, I can talk about this stuff all day long. The 740 is gathering information from the heating and transportation sectors, not the electric sectors. So I feel like I did go off kind of down a little side alley, but we're trying to gather data from the heating, fuel, and the transportation sectors, which don't have any of that kind of regulatory structure around them. So when the price of gas goes up at the pump, our Department of Public Service or PUC is not having a rate case on that. That's what I meant.
Mike?
Thank you. Excuse me, but hey, thanks for bringing this forward. I feel like this is a really worthwhile investment today, invest in the future. But piggyback a little on what the representative was saying, I think costs are something to look at. My experience is with my EV, I'm spending half the amount of money I used to with a gas vehicle to get back and forth. The differential between what you spend on electricity and gas is huge. And but it would be interesting to quantify that. The other piece of it is, I doubt there's anybody who puts a budget together right now, whether it's a family, a school, a business, has expected the kind of spikes they're seeing right now. And that's because we're dealing with an unregulated industry for gas and oil. That's a problem for me because we're at the mercy of them. So from my understanding, from my way of looking at things, I appreciate that electric is regulated. And as far as the nuclear option, I'm not sure someone's suggesting a nuke on the shores of the lake, but I don't know where you would put it, Vermont. And I don't think that's a viable option. Nobody wants them anymore.
Yeah, and again, that,
That's a whole other
for
conversation.
you.
Whole other conversation. We're gonna focus on the bill.
Like I said, you can, I will sit here all day, and I'm happy to do it.
I appreciate it. I'm gonna let Wayne have one more question here.
Back on the data. I assume you're getting gallons of whatever kind of fuel. What's the data that they told you that they want to collect?
It would gather, see here, it's in the bill. Fuel sales by type, by supplier, by zip code, municipality, or the smallest practicable geographic unit. Did I get that right, Ellen? So it's fuel sales by type. So, diesel versus gas at the pump.
Gallons.
Gallons, yeah.
For all types.
Gallons sold, gallons, yeah.
Gallons, and if it was natural gas or some other gas.
By type of fuel.
Like propane gas, that two stuff.
Yeah, and, Yep.
And by gallons, and then once you get the gallon data, the analysis, in order to get, calculate CO2 based upon if a gallon of those kinds of fuel was burnt, and then what the totals are, is that what you're going to be doing with that data?
yeah,
Then once you've got that total CO2 calculation, nothing else you calculate, just probably CO2?
yeah. Do you want to go, Ellen? But you can explain the legal stuff, and then I have a more policy-based response to why I think this data is helpful.
So
They break it out on the greenhouse gas inventory, CO2, yes, but they address the other elements.
this is why I'm asking, I'm getting to the magnitude of the effort in terms of, the job that someone would have to do. And what I'm seeing is, if you're collecting data on the gallons, the computations in terms of what the CO2 is coming out of a gallon of any of the types of fuel that you have is simple. You have a spreadsheet or anything you can calculate, and by pushing one button, once you get the volumes in there, right? That's not a hard job. So 2 employees full-time for all this time, it's not a very hard job. That's what I'm focusing on.
Yep. Heard. I want to say one thing though, about that. And it's really just more of a philosophical or policy, what is the problem and what is the solution? Like, why do we care? And I just want to remind folks around this table that greenhouse gas emissions is a very high-level technical metric for how we measure carbon pollution, and it's how we measure progress. It's our yardstick, right? So we're here and we want to be here. But how you get, and this is why I care so deeply about this work, how you get from here to here doesn't happen in a scientific laboratory. It happens one Vermonter at a time. It happens when I help a low-income person weatherize a home so it's not leaking fuel oil into the atmosphere.
I understand all that stuff.
Okay, so
I'm just trying to get, the data. I'm not focused on the greater policy at this point in time. I do have my own opinions on it, but I'm not.
I'll meet you in the
I'm not worried
cafeteria.
about that. I'm just worried about what we're gonna pay for and whether it's gonna be giving us a return on investment. We're a very small state. In the global wide, the CO2 we produce is in a pimple on a, can't even know the size of the monster beyond. So we're gonna be measuring a difference, and if we're gonna be gathering statistics that are gonna give us enough information so that we can determine within 95% probability that we're gonna make a 1% difference in the CO2 and something else, how much data will we need? Are we gathering the right data? That kind of thing. So I'm thinking along those lines, and I want to be able to see a return on the investment.
Okay,
Something that yields something that we're going to be able to act upon. And if you're going to say, okay, we're going to look and use this data, and some certain point in time, if it goes this way a little bit too much, we're going to advise actions like this, more electric cars or whatever you're going to do. But it should be tied to some steps that are going to have actions that are going to head you in the direction of whatever your goal is going to be, whether I agree with the goal or not.
that is, so you and I could not agree more. Because the point of this data is not to be watching something tick down 1% on a yardstick. It is to be able to look and say, wow, our lowest income county is where they're burning the most kerosene. That is a,
Well, we would know that now.
okay, our lowest income community. And we do not know that now. So to be able to target a policy to really see where people are burning the most fuel, the most price volatile, the most expensive, the least sustainable kind of fuel by town, and be able to say like, wow, we've got 2 communities right in a row that could really use some targeted incentives. We've got income data. We know those are low income communities. Let's help this town. We really can't do that right now, or folks in this community, they're doing fine. They're using a lot less heating oil. They've probably already put in their splits and weatherized because they can afford it.
So you're suggesting that one of the actions that we might be able to take is that when you find something like that we might be able to change the practices there by subsidizing something that allows, say, poor people in some places that are burning coal, be able to say, go on to solar or something else like that.
I'd start with weatherizing homes, but yes, the idea is to be able to build policy that can pinpoint how we can help people. Because if climate policy can't help the people who right now, people who can afford it, they're weatherizing their homes, they're buying EVs, they're putting on solar, they're putting in splits. So climate action and saving money on your energy bills by doing all these amazing things, that's become now something that people can afford it, can do. So everybody who's got cash can weatherize and put on solar panels and drive around in their EVs, and all the people who get hurt the most by spiking fuel prices are getting left in the dirt because we don't have the data we need to develop pinpoint policies to help the folks who need it the most.
Which will save money because it's targeted and not just blanketed.
Yeah.
Thanks, I understand.
Yeah, it's really important. And every year, it's going to be so easy to say, we don't have this 500K, we don't have this 300K, we don't have it, we're not going to do it. And when the pedal really hits the metal and maybe things change federally, or the time has come where we have political consensus around enacting these kinds of policies, we just say, wow, we don't have the data we need. It's really going to be sad. It is going to be such a lost opportunity. And the more years of data we have, the better policy we can build. So every year we wait is another year that we're putting off being able to do this right. And it's such a lost opportunity because I really do want to reiterate, the world's moving forward, you know, and to build these kinds of policies at some point is going to seem imperative. We're not going to believe we didn't do it before. We're going to be really disappointed we didn't do it before. And we're not going to have the numbers we need to build the kind of smart policy that I think the legislature is capable of doing. And every year lost that we can't find the penny to save the dime is going to be a year we spend the dime.
Thank you, Kath.
On that note,
I think we have got everything we need to know at this point, and if people have questions, we're not going to vote today. But we have all the information we need at this point. So great, thank you very much.
thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
Thanks for the thoughtful conversation. And always happy to answer any questions.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
well.
Take care. So committee, we're gonna go off live for a couple of minutes and then we're gonna come back on live for a couple of minutes after that. James has the spreadsheet for bills as it is, but we're gonna do that live. But before that, we have something to do while we're